Okay, this is part 5 of the 6-part series on the 8 orders of being. And this has taken a lot longer than I thought it was going to be for me to pull this together, because part 5 has just exploded on me. When I started working on it, it's like, oh, I got to get this piece in there and that. And so it's turned into a much bigger project than I want this to be, because I want this series to just be a quick way that somebody can understand the 8 orders. And this is all about applications, which matters. But so what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to make each of these a post in Substack. At least that's my plan. And I will link them here so that you can find them. Maybe even remake this video at some point when I have a clearer sense of what that is. But I want to give you some idea of what is included in this, so you'll be interested in pulling it up. So first here is the mind-body problem. The mind-body problem is the problem that we have around the notion that we have bodies, we have a physical being, and somehow it gives rise to awareness. I form a mind, I'm conscious. How is it that that happens? And this at least goes all the way back to Socrates. We've been messing with this. And my take on this is it's really, what's the problem? We know that it happens. Why do we know to know how it happens? Well, the reason we want to know how it happens is that we want to be able to duplicate it, like doing things like AI or understanding the consciousness of other beings. My answer to this is we don't really need to know all that in order to understand things like the formation of intimacy and the quality of being present to each other. This one is about the recognition that we have the capacity to form relationships with each other that can be really quite connected. We can be very much intimate with, connected to, and I'm not talking just about physical intimacy, primarily about emotional and even cognitive intimacy, in such a way that we, as different people, as different organisms within a system, we become our own organism. How is it that we are able to do that in such a way that we can be deeply present with each other? There's a process to that. Then why don't we do that all the time? What's the inhibition to being this present to each other? The inhibitions have to do with things like feeling safe to be my own person. Can we be well differentiated? Can I be bounded in myself while I am bonded with someone else? So there's that kind of a wish to nurture my own individuality. There are ways in which we are afraid we're going to kind of lose our sense of self. But there's also the question of, am I going to be really connected to somebody who sees the world very differently than I do? Because when you see it differently than I do, that creates a kind of anxiety for me. And so how do we deal with the fact that we see things differently, and that, in fact, we are in different ways showing up at different levels of maturity? And so what is this quality of maturity that we're talking about, such that we can understand it and have it not be in the way of our capacity to be intimate with each other? Now, as we are intimate with each other, as we're connected, as we have this sense of presence with each other, there's the systems that we form develop a way of being with each other that we call the governance. So in our relationship, how do we decide what we're going to have for dinner? As a family, who's in charge? As a city, as a nation, as the planetary collected community of humans, how do we decide how we're going to be in our relationship with each other such that we meet some specific aims? Part of the difficulty that we'll see when we look at how it is that we understand different governance systems is that we will choose a different system depending upon what the aim is. And so we have autocracies and democracies. We have authoritarianism, we have communitarianism, depending in large part, on what are the aims that we have about what we're trying to create. Then we talk about nonviolence as a 6th order perspective, as a form of governance. I want to suggest in this section that nonviolence, or what Gandhi referred to as satyagraha, is not just how to do a peaceful demonstration. It's about how it is that we live our lives in our relationship with each other in such a way that we pay attention to what is true, we live with courage, and we do no harm to others. So that's ultimately satyagraha. It means just that. So what would that look like as a system of governance? And then finally, we're going to look at this whole question of what then must we do? Given all of this, how then are we going to show up in our lives, in our relationships with each other, such that we create the world that we want to live in? What does that look like? All right. So these are the applications that will be presented separately as separate articles within my Substack, and I have the link to the Substack down below. Hope to see you there.